A New England fall colors road trip is a bucket list item for people all over the world. The way the colors change from green to yellow and orange and even red is something that you have to see with your own eyes. Coming from California, I was excited to visit this area in the fall, and I also had no idea what to expect before I went. In order to help others with their New England fall colors road trip, I wanted to share this video of some of the tips I used to make the most of my time in New England. Also, if you're interested in more tips and some of my favorite spots, including a map I used when I visited, you can check out the ebook that I've linked in the description. Let's jump into it. The first thing that I never realized before I went is that fall is actually everywhere in New England. While I was planning this trip, I was worried that I was gonna miss fall and that the whole trip would be a bust. What I realized after coming though is fall is everywhere and that it just slowly moves down the state over the course of a month. It starts in the northern part and then it makes its way south, so if you're spending a few days driving New England, there's a good chance that you'll see a lot of fall and that it could get better or worse as you head north depending on what time you're there. We were basically driving around all day in fall colors the entire time we were on our road trip. It was magical. Next up, I wanted to share some information on how to pick the best dates for your New England fall road trip. When I was researching the trip, I spent a lot of time looking at the best dates and ended up going from October 10th to the 15th. It seemed like early to mid-October was the best time based on what I was reading, but it does change based on the weather each year, so I recommend checking out fall color prediction sites. Yep, there's sites that predict fall colors, which I'll link to in the description for planning your trip. I'm sure that whatever dates you go in that range, you'll find some fall somewhere and you'll have a great time. Next up, I wanted to talk a little bit about how busy it gets and just to bring your patience, as this is a bucket list item for so many people that there's gonna be a lot of people with you when you're on your trip. Since fall only happens for a few weeks to maybe a month out of the year, be prepared for crowds at many of the main areas. If you travel on the weekends, this will be amplified tenfold and it'll be very hard to find parking at some of the areas. Places like Stowe, the Can-Camagus Highway, and the Sleepy Hollow Farm are known all around the country and are major destinations for fall color tourists. Like I said earlier though, if you just drive Route 100 in Vermont, you're gonna find so many places with amazing fall colors and little to no people. So my recommendation is of course to see some of those famous areas, but to also take some time for yourself and just to enjoy how beautiful the entirety of Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts is at this time of the year. Of course, if you want some tips to avoid the crowds, just go as early as you possibly can. We found that most people weren't getting up before 9 to 10 a.m. and so if we were early, we could get some great spots without other people. The same busyness can be said for restaurants and food, so plan to bring your own food or plan to wait if you want to get something at a popular restaurant. We found that the popular restaurants in the major areas often had at least an hour wait whenever we wanted to go there. We ended up just grabbing food from the grocery store and we ate McDonald's a couple times on this trip just because we wanted to spend more time experiencing the fall than waiting for the food. So know that going in and just plan accordingly and it'll go great for you as well. Next, be sure to book everything you possibly can in advance. Normally I don't stress about this when I'm planning my trips and I give myself a little bit of leeway if I want to cancel a hotel and stay longer in one area. This isn't great to do for New England though because it's so busy. I booked my hotels, my flight, and my rental car months in advance and I'd recommend you do the same. There's so many people traveling around these areas that you can't really wing it and hope to find a hotel or a campground day of. This is the same for attractions like the Flume Gorge and the Cog Railway, as they often sell out way in advance during the busy weekends. Next up, let's talk a little bit about phone reception, which we basically only had about 50% of the trip. I was actually surprised by how bad the phone reception was as I was driving around New England. I was hoping to use my phone and my map to be able to figure out where the next stops were, but unfortunately that wasn't always the case. Normally when you roll into a small town, you're able to load your map and you can see the next spot, but be sure to know where you're going before you go into some of the more remote areas. That being said, most of the major stops are well marked, and when you get to places like Stowe, of course you're going to have cell phone reception. Like many of our other road trips, my dad and I always say that the journey is the destination on a trip like this. Even though we had lots of spots that we wanted to hit each day, we often found that the drive itself was just as good as some of the different attractions we stopped at. If you see something beautiful, just stop, get out of your car and take some pictures. You never know if you're gonna see anything like that again on the drive, and you don't wanna miss an opportunity. For example, red trees are few and far between, and sometimes you'll see an incredibly stunning one. Be sure to take that picture, as you never know when you're gonna see another red tree again. My next tip is just to get out on some of the trails and not to spend the entire time in the car. Driving around New England is amazing during the fall, but you should also get out of your car to experience it as well. There's something magical about walking down a trail with the orange trees growing over you like a tunnel and the wind causing the leaves to fall down around you as you walk. The drive is amazing, but the short hikes in the trees are some of the most memorable things we did on our trip. You can see all of the hikes we did on our trip if you watch the full road trip video, which you can see right here. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about the cost, which is one of the main questions I get on any of the road trips that I do. This one's a little bit more difficult as we did a lot of stuff on our drive, so the rental car price is probably a lot more than it would be if you were only there for a couple days. That being said, it was expensive to get a rental car, it was expensive to get flights, and even to get hotels was a little bit expensive because it's such a popular time to visit the area. We did save a lot of money on food though, because we didn't want to wait for the lines anywhere and we ate McDonald's or at the grocery store most of the time. Plus, the piece of the pie that's for attractions you can basically cut out if you want, as the main attraction we paid for was the Cog Railway, and it was around $150 for the two of us. Overall, it's not that expensive of a trip if you're only getting a rental car for a short period of time and if you're returning it to the same place, which is not what we did. We started our trip at New York's JFK Airport, drove all around New England, up to Acadia, and then ended in Boston, which is where we returned the car. Doing a one-way rental like that is always more expensive than returning to the same place. Plus, if you book even further in advance, you might be able to find discounts on flights, or if you live and you can drive there, you can save a lot of money on a trip like this. Overall, it wasn't too bad to have a bucket list experience like this, but I just want to share cost information because everything's more expensive because it's so popular. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Be sure to leave any other questions you have in the comments, and if you want to check out my ebook with more information and the map that I used, you can see that in the description. Thanks again for watching this video, and we will see you on the next one.